Hello everybody. Somebody asked me maybe I could demonstrate my techniques for doing clouds on a video. So I've got a little almost blank section here. I've kind of done a little bit, but so I was going to demonstrate that technique using my airbrush. Now this airbrush I'm using, because it's better for acrylic paint, those water-based acrylics, this is just a cheapy airbrush from Harbor Freight. So I think it was 20 bucks. And you can get the same thing basically by I forget who makes it, Pache or one of those at Hobby Lobby. That's like $20, and if you have, or 25, and you have a 40% off coupon, you can get a pretty good deal on it. So the first thing I do is I mix the paint, and all I did was use this cheap little acrylic paint from Walmart, or I'm sorry, Hobby Lobby. I've got white and black, and that's all I need. So I thinned it, and it's got to be very thin. It's got to be about the consistency of skim milk when you're doing acrylic, these water-based acrylics. If you're doing enamel paint, you'll want to make it about the consistency of whole milk when you're painting it. So let's get to work. It's a real easy thing. What I normally do is, so first of all, let me explain how to do clouds so it looks like you have some depth in the picture. And I know this is a little bit different from the one I did before, but I think this gives you a little more subtle appearance in the airbrushing, doing it with an airbrush, because you don't want your attention drawn to the backdrop. You want your backdrop to be kind of the stage, and the train be the players. So what I do initially is I kind of go hold the airbrush about a foot or so away from the backdrop and go along the bottom, maybe 8 inches or so, just back and forth real fast with white, and that gives it a little bit of a fade effect as you're going down. Like when you get towards the horizon, the sky gets lighter. So since I've only used one color of blue on the whole thing, giving that fade effect at the bottom looks really nice. So I'll just do that real quick and show you how it looks. So you can see I'm just doing about a foot away, 8 inches to a foot away from the bottom. And of course you want to cover any track or scenery. So you're not trying to really make clouds at this point. You just want to kind of get that haziness, that lightness down at the bottom of your scene. So that's all I'm doing. I'm just spraying back and forth till it gets to the point of where you like it. So you can see that it's still light down at the bottom. And remember, you're going to have trees, so you want to go up high enough so you get just over the top of your trees, wherever they're going to be. And I'm going to get my drinking water out of the way so I don't spray it with paint, although it's non-toxic. So here's what I do. I'm just going back and forth. And one thing I forgot to mention, I kind of want to hold it, since this paint's so thin, I kind of want to hold a paper towel around the bottle that I'm spraying it, because it does tend to drip a little bit. So there we go. Just back and forth till you got that nice little light haze up at the top. And that's all I do. Pretty simple technique. Believe me, this would, doing it with an airbrush will do a very, very light effect. So you don't have to worry about really overdoing it, because you can kind of go back and forth over it several times. All right. And being that far away, the paint, by the time the paint gets to the backdrop, it's pretty much dry. All right. So the next thing if you get some, you notice I got a few little white dots here and there. All I got to do is rub them with my fingers. Okay. So, one of the things I did want to mention, I put a couple drops of glycerin. You can get this at the drugstore. I got this in CVS. Any drugstore will have glycerin. And I don't know how much. This little bottle wasn't much, so a few dollars. So you put that in your airbrush and it'll prevent your paint from drying so quick in the tip. So, and like I said, that's just a couple drops. You know, in a jar this size, I put about 5 drops. So if you got a smaller jar, of course, you'll want to size it down accordingly. All right. So now to get a good effect when you're doing clouds, you want the clouds at the bottom to be smaller and closer together. And then as you go up the backdrop, you're going to make the clouds larger and further apart. That'll give you a view of clouds on the horizon like that. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to I'm going to get it a little bit closer this time and make clouds. And I got a little cloud there. I don't know how well you can see it, but it's just a little one. Little one, however many you want, just do a few. If you get a drop or a smear or something, just dot it with a paper towel. It doesn't matter, that just gives you some more effect. So I've got now I'm getting some small clouds. You got to make sure, of course, you don't want them lined up. If you get them lined up too much, just go above and below. So now I've got some, and you can even give them a little, circles with your airbrush as you're doing it. That'll give you a good effect. Now you see my paint's thin and it's kind of running, but that's okay. I'm just gonna dab it a little bit when I see it run. And that actually does pretty good. Really, it gets some more color within the cloud if you do that. So now I'm gonna go up here and make some bigger clouds. And you don't have to do many. If you do too many, it's gonna look funny. So. And be sure to vary the height of the clouds and the shapes. Because clouds are different shapes. So you can see once again that this one's running a little bit. I could swipe it like that, and you'll notice what kind of effect that gives it. And then maybe I'll go over it with a little more. There. So now as I progress up, I want to make the clouds a little bit larger, and I want to go more circular with my airbrush. There we go. And sometimes you get a little splatter. That's okay. We just want to make sure that the clouds have all the shapes of them are different. You don't want one singular shape. Don't run them all straight. Put some tops on them if you want to, things like that. Like I say, as I get to the larger clouds, they're further apart, but they're like I said, they're bigger. Now that gives the illusion. As you're going up, you're going from the horizon up to the sky. So. And one of the other things I'm doing too is, since I painted my backdrop, I primed it first. So I can see some spots where the paint is thin, the blue paint. So I kind of go over that. I kind of go over those spots with the airbrush, and that kind of hides where the thin paint was on the background. There's really no right way or wrong way to do this. You just got to make sure that whatever they do, they don't look uniform. All right, so now the next thing to do, I take my paint jar here, and I just had this white paint in. And you got little spots out here. And the further back you get, the more delicate the clouds are. So you can get in closer and move further back, and that just gives you some more effect as well. And you can use the little off and on effect like I'm doing here. Here we go. So I think that looks pretty good. One of the things, like with any art you're doing, you got to know when to put the paintbrush down. So I am going to put it down now before I overdo stuff. I'm doing a little thing off camera because I've got a big, huge blank space over here. So all right. So the only thing I'm going to do now, I've got about a third of a jar left in here. So I am going to take the black and I am going to put 1 drop of black in, and that's it. No more than 1 drop. And this stuff is so thick that that's easy to do. There we go. I put in 1 drop of black. I'm going to take a little stir stick and stir it up. If you want to, you can put a lid on the jar and shake it like I'm going to do here. Alright, and then just what I thought, that is more than enough. So that 1 little drop of black made it good enough gray to go back over. I'm just going to go over different spots. I'm going to make some gray clouds themselves, but I'm also going to put some highlights in the clouds I've already done. So, and I'm just going to make sure the gray is coming out. There we go. So I'm just going to go back here like this one. Put some gray on it. Up here. And this just gives some depth is all it's doing. You don't want too stark of a contrast between the colors. And I'm just spraying the gray just where I think it needs to go on the cloud. Sometimes towards the bottom of the cloud, sometimes in the middle of it. It just gives it a nice little highlight. And aside from the gray highlighting the clouds themselves, you can actually make some gray clouds, because you'll notice in the sky sometimes there's some small gray clouds. So I'm gonna do that. And once again, just like with the white, further back you get, you know, it'll just be a little softer effect. So I'll go in as close as a few inches, you know, about 3 inches, and as far back as about a foot. So you'll notice what I did there, there was a white cloud and I sprayed gray mostly on top of it just to give it the effect, like I said, a little more depth. So there you go. And one thing, don't think that this is necessarily my technique. I watch YouTube videos and I just try things and experiment. And sometimes I use a combination of a lot of different techniques. I use what is easiest for me and what I think looks best. That might